All right, Clean Freaks, my name's Hank Balch. Welcome to this special episode of Beyond Clean with SteelcoBelimed. And in studio today, we've got a guest many of y'all have probably seen out there in the space. If you've been around, if you're reading articles, if you're listening to presentations, Gene has been one of those thought leaders out there in the business for a long time, but also contributing to the way that we think differently about this industry. For anybody who maybe is not familiar with you, can you introduce yourself, give a little bit more background?
I'm Gene Ricupito. I am currently the System Director of Sterile Processing for UCSF Health in San Francisco, California. We cover the Bay Area. I have oversight currently of 6 inpatient hospitals, 3 surgery centers, and 3 satellite SPVs throughout the region. I'm kind of that guy that's known around the CS world as, oh, he's the computer guy, which is somewhat true, but somewhat unfair because I'm not really about the shiny baubles of the fun little computer and what it does. I'm more about what it can do for us, how we can use the technologies we have to drive success and our awareness of what's going on. Do we think or do we know? It's a very popular statement. I'm more about do we know. So I'm very much, as you can see, all this data behind me on my wall in my office. That's the product of various programs and processes we have in place.
It sounds like I'm talking to the right guy then if the topic of conversation
Unfortunately.
is renovation and new construction. Let's take a step back and just talk through the challenges or inefficiencies that kind of prompted the change. The old adage is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Obviously, there was something there staring you in the face that says, okay, it's probably time for us to look at this.
Okay, so going back to 2015, I moved on from PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2014, and I started my own consulting firm with a business partner. We have both had expertise in peri-op and sterile processing, and both worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. They were moving in a different direction. We're really kind of servicing this area so much. And one of my projects was UCSF, and we can get into why I stayed, but very first order of business for the organization was, let's find out where we are, like in things. And so I did and you people might not know of it. Some people do. There's a thing called a SWOT analysis, which is a great tool in consulting. And it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what you recognize, the first thing when you evaluate a department's infrastructure, you're going to look at a number of things, and you're going to look at, certainly the equipment and its life cycle, but also its layout, the age. There's an old adage. I had a great leader I worked with in consulting, and he says, let me tell you something. No one cares about what's going on in the kitchen as long as the dining room is quiet and there's violins playing and the food smells good and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, you're really right. And one of the things, his name is John Marchus, and he's a pretty brilliant guy. He taught me a lot about how to position information to capture the interests of senior leaders. And I can tell you that I do that on multiple levels, but it's critically important when we talk about having everything we need to do to fight the good fight, to have the resources, which can be infrastructure and equipment and all this.
So, Gene, you bring up one of the biggest challenges out there in the space, and we've talked before on the competitive nature of that capital decision making, right? How do you communicate or break through that assumption, as you said, if the dining room is nice and quiet and there's violins playing, but sterile processing is in dire need of someone who's thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years down the road? How do you make that connection?
All right. Here's my advice to someone facing that challenge. First of all, partner with someone who has the ability to create a compelling argument that you might not have as a sterile processing leader. And what I mean by that is companies, all of the major suppliers of our processing equipment, the big 3, if you will, all have someone within their organization that will come to your hospital. And part of that analysis will look at the current state, and it will look at your processing capacity. We all know that capital sales for like washers and sterilizers is a long cycle. It takes years. So they'll have somebody who is a subject matter expert in the things I'm talking about that can help you develop, okay, and here's a good example of what it will say. It will be like, here's your current state. Here's the total possible production capacities you have today. And they'll ask questions of your leadership in peri-op as part of this, like, what are your projected volume growth goals? And they will skate. Right. It's the most important question. And they will skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is. And what that means is they will create a document that will be a projection of, okay, here's your current total capacity. Here's your goals, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And let me show you where if you stay at your current capacity, meaning doing nothing, where you will simply hit the point of saturation. You don't have the ability any longer to compete with the turnover. Here's a secret about production capacity some sterile processing leaders might not know. There is an inverted triangle, and essentially you want your mechanical washing capacity per day to outstrip your sterilization capacity in a ratio of 2 to possibly 3 to 1. And when you look at your washers, you want to also consider the fact that you have multi-layered trays frequently, particularly with loaners. So again, you have to have either the breadth and the capacity to do twice as much to be able to get it through that. So otherwise, you'll have a bottleneck. And so that's one of the things that's a secret of, if there is a secret sauce.
Even if you successfully make that compelling case up front with the initial draft of the square footage that's available and you're planning for growth, like you end up now with the second draft and you're like, ladies and gentlemen, there is no growth in this plan anymore. So how do you, in that in-between stage, keep that advocacy going, or make sure, again, because they're trying to carve this budget down, and almost always the budget they're carving down is the growth budget, and so we're going to end up with a department that is already behind. It may look shiny and new, but from day one we're already behind. How do you keep that from happening?
The most compelling thing that I can share that you got to do is, one thing you have to do when you have a vision of what the SPD's operations are going to be, you're going to have 3 or 4 bullet points that are your most salient, pressing, compelling arguments on the first slide, if you will, of a presentation. And you might have 500 pages of other slides that are all the evidence to support those 3 or 4 bullet points. And you have to keep it simple, and you have to think very carefully about how you position information. You have to have thought through everything. And when they want to drill down into like the next layer or the next layer beyond that, you have to have a concise understanding of what you're talking about in a way that is meaningful. And I will tell you another thing. Widgets, numbers, like in SPD, a lot of us, we look at how many products we produce.
Right.
Monetize that. Monetizing things is where the rubber meets the road for most of the people, where you have to have a compelling argument, because it's all dollars to them.
So, Gene, talk to us about the regulatory compliance part of renovation and construction planning.
One of the things, as a subject matter expert in sterile processing, a sterile processing leader can do is be that conscience of the organization to remind the designers about a lot of the regulatory stuff, and I'll give you some specifics. Like, they're pretty much aware, but it's sort of a vague, like, yes, well, we sort of know there's air exchange, but they don't get into the specifics. So like, I keep like a whole library of citations out of ST79 and ST90 and ST91 and ASHRAE 170. It is wise for people who, if you're going to undertake participation in a renovation project or a build project, become very comfortable and versant with those parts of ST79.
You could have decided to go with a lot of OEMs, a lot of different directions for your renovation projects and construction projects. What about the SteelcoBelimed team made you choose to go that direction?
Couple of things. Belimed is SteelcoBelimed now, as they're called, right? a couple of uniquenesses. Some of it is based on relationships. We invited all of the major suppliers to provide us with a roadmap. Like we talked about, skating to where the puck is going to be. Right. They provided the most compelling one. Another thing I looked at, another supplier that we had worked with at the time was in transition as far as ownership and other things. And their pipeline for R&D didn't seem to be as innovative and keeping up with our needs. So one of the compelling things about this is the preservation of utilities and sustainability. They've been a very good partner. They understand where we're headed as an organization. They ask the right questions, and we're able to put together a very good picture of what that looks like. And I can tell you the other companies do it well too, but I think that there's a number of influencing factors as to why we made the decision. The market here leans towards that supplier. There's a lot of support and service in the region, and there's a lot of qualified people that work for the company that are a stone's throw away. What it comes down is I got some pretty impressive technicians.